Um, Whoa. Oh, okay, we're live. Yeah, sorry for this. Okay, just a sec. I think they will calm down eventually. Um, okay, they're not calming down. I don't know, like, can you hear me well, or is it like super? Okay, good. I'm sorry for my neighbors. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Omakase Show webinar series. My name is Lola or Alena. I'm host of this webinar series. And before we jump into our webinar today, I will just share my screen. It's a small reminder that you guys can go to our profile on X and support our show directly by sending your donation in Ethereum. And I have today an amazing Sofia Garcia, co-founder of Artix Code. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the space?
Yeah, of course. So hello. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Um, so Sophia, I am the founder of Artix Code. I really founded it a few years back in 2016, really as just a place to kind of like a safe space on the internet for new media art. Over the years, I really just became obsessed with code as a creative medium. I had studied art history and computer science, and was just fascinated with the way the two overlapped. And I think this wake up call I had in my first coding class, realizing that technology was so creative. I think beforehand it was just this thing that we lived with, and this thing that kind of dominated our lives. But for the first time I really got to see the human aspect of it, and how much went into even building something as simple as a website, and let alone large installations and things of that sort. So over time I started working with more artists that I was finding online, through Instagram, curating shows, having a really good time doing that. And I used to work as an engineer, and I ended up that allowed me to have some extra money to acquire works and to start putting on shows. And in 2021, I left that full time to focus on Artix Code fully. Since then, I've joined forces with my new business partner, Tony Marinera, as some of you may know on Twitter. And we've grown a roster of about 9 artists now. And it's just been an amazing ride over the last few years to see this evolution of kind of an anon Instagram account, kind of just sharing photos to a full-on generative art house representing artists, working with collectors, advising museums, and other institutions on just the world of generative art and Web3. And so, yeah, that's the SparkNotes version.
It sounds really exciting, and I just want to jump right into Artix Codes. Can you
Mhm.
share your journey as a founder? And I also opened the Artix Code website, and
Mhm.
if you want, you can just guide us through it, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and right before this, I just wanted to ask if this is a curated initiative, right? Or any artist is can have this possibility to be represented by Artix Code.
It is curated at the moment. These are artists that we've had relationships with for quite a long time. So you can see here some of their sketches. Again, this is really on the idea of really wanting to show people the human aspect of code, and really kind of like shine in on what it looks like to be a digital artist that actually starts with a most of it starts with a notebook. So most of it starts with jotting down ideas. I'm not sure what the images for the artists are loading. But also, a fun moment is that I built the website out with my friend Henry. So that was a really fun initiative too, just kind of really challenging ourselves to build all this out. But here you can like learn more about some of the products that our artists have done. In the early days, it was kind of like trying to navigate all of the opportunities that were coming towards to generative art, especially in 2021. We kind of went from no one caring at all about this art form to everyone and their cousin being interested in opening new platforms and trying to do new shows and trying to, work with all of these artists. And there really is only a small group of artists, if you think about it, that are really working on this. Like they're like those like key names. And so we just found ourselves constantly talking to artists and being like, and then just asking for gut checks, essentially like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Hey, have you heard of this person? And that's when we really decided to hone in on artist management, where it was like, okay, you know what, like we're here to basically be um, your advisors, like whatever you need help with, whatever you need to build, whatever your goals are, we're here to be a sounding board for you. We'll help you out with your emails. We'll negotiate your contracts for you, and really kind of think about it in the Web3 space, like of kind of decentralized um, approach to even showcasing the work. So we don't insist that our artists exclusively release through us or that we manage their sales. We love partnering with other platforms. Actually, the reason why we built this new platform or like our new website was because the artists were also kind of like, well, we also want to be able to release with you guys. So that was a fun push too, to be able to build something out where we can release works for our artists. We've done a lot of private sales. So one of the big parts of our business is really just kind of, we will announce that we're working with an artist, or, people will reach out to the artist like, hey, your work is great. And so we'll just work with the collectors and really help them build out, um, their relationships with the artists, and just help make sure that it comes the relationship is mutually beneficial, and making sure that everyone feels really great once the work has passed hands. I think earlier on, it was really hard for artists to advocate for their price points. Sometimes you can find a lot of investors, not so much collectors. I do like to have a difference. Sometimes there's overlap, but I think earlier on you found a lot of investors coming up to artists and really trying to undermine their pricing strategies, and really try to fight for cheaper acquisition costs, which of course we can resonate with. But my job here is to protect the artists and make sure that we're moving, but also moving in a sustainable way. So I think there's this interesting balance at play between the two, because we also want to make sure that our artists have sustainable pricing practices, and that we can gradually get to um, basically gradually increase, because I think 2020, 21 was also a very scary, exciting year. But we saw artists that I was selling for a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000 a year before, selling for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, within a calendar year. And that's scary, because once you hit that point, where do you go from there? You really only are able to access a certain collector base. So we want to make sure that our collectors and our artists can grow together with their careers. And yeah, I'll stop there. Hopefully, I'm not rambling off too much.
Thank you so much. Meanwhile, my neighbors are going through like whole contemporary performance there. I just wanted to ask you, like, considering your rich engineering background, your background as a founder, how do you see generative art evolving? Right, if we are using in terms of AI and in terms of computer machines and their, I don't know, like, and their potential, how do you see this niche evolving in a few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting what's happening with AI. So when GANs were first introduced and we started really seeing artists play around with that, the first year that I started selling artwork, or doing shows, I would say in 2019, we were showing works by artists like Helena Sarin and Ben Snell, and these artists who were really experimenting with AI as a tool. And I think there was a really big distinction that happened with the generative AI approach. So more of um, the prompt-based framework for using AI, which I think is what everyone is kind of really curious about right now. And I will say that initially I was also kind of like thrown off by it. I had that sort of like visceral gut reaction that a lot of people have, like, well, no, like that's not right. And I had to challenge that. I had to challenge that feeling, because I think it mirrors so much of how we felt about computers in the first place. And now we're here with like a super rich ecosystem around computer generated art and digital native media. And AI is a tool. And I think the best way for people to, if you're concerned about AIs, to join the conversation. So if we let the powers that be kind of just roll and do everything that the corporate structures want to do with it, well, then yeah, we might find, I could see. I think that there is a real threat around what is happening with AI, but I also find that the only way to understand it and embrace it and to kind of take away some of the fear is to engage with it. And I have like come to start using like, ChatGPT a little bit more. I've come to try to understand the tools that the artists are using. And for me, concept is key when it comes to AI generated art specifically. And seeing the ways in which artists again use it as a tool. I think right now what it's done is provided a better critical lens for the way we look at art. It's not so much like, oh, this is just a pretty picture or aesthetically this is pleasing. I think that you can say this around a lot of different like arts and crafts and all these sorts of delegations that people want to have. But I think it forces us to really consider a more critical framework of how we look at artwork right now, especially on within the digital sphere. And so with AI, I really do like to view it as just another tool in the artist's toolbox when it comes to the like the deep fakes and the ways in which like we can create new media, visual media so quickly. I think that is definitely something that is concerning for me. I do think that that's someplace that where blockchain will come into play and being able to verify the source of information, where it's coming from, and things of this sort. But we still have a long way to go, and I think it's going to get pretty interesting before we find solutions. But the more people we can have involved in the conversation, the better.
Thank you so much. And I'm like curious, what makes an artist that Art X Code want to work with? So if we can do it like in a way, like a tips for the artist, what a creative, generative artist should be in order to work with you. And you can also introduce it in a form of tips for the artists that are just starting their journey.
I mean, I think one of the key aspects of the artist on our roster is that they have a point of view. They have a very clear direction that they're heading. And if and they're just so open to experimentation and quality, like they put their heart and soul into what they do. They're also kind people to work with. I think being able to work with people well and have that sort of partnership is really important. So the artists that we tend to work with, we typically actually do like we work with them beforehand before we decide to sign them. So we'll do, different projects with artists, and we'll just to make sure that we actually have a good working relationship. And there are some artists that we've done projects with that, we just realize that we're not the best partners for them. They want something else, and like that's not what we provide, and it's totally cool and it's really great. But we are a small team, and so we need to be able. We know what our limits are at the time at this moment, and we try to. Work really closely with the artists to the best of our abilities to do what we can. And so at this moment, we're pretty much capped at our current roster, and we're working to find or to really like garner the resources to be able to support more artists. But I think for us, it's finding that really nice mix between emerging and established artists that we know that we've worked with in the past. But I love finding new artists. That's probably one of like my favorite things in the world. Finding artists that deserve to be recognized, highlighting them. Maybe it's as simple as a retweet or whatever, but we find that there's, one artist that we just signed, Juan Rodriguez Garcia. I would say he's been around for some time, but I would say that like within the space, maybe he's not so much known. He's definitely someone that I would say is emerging, that we want more people to know his name, but he's so talented and he's an angel. Like he is so great to work with. And then we have artists like Sasha Styles, who is in a league of her own in the way that she utilizes neural networks and AI and GPTs in the world of literature. She is an absolute trailblazer. And, when thinking about a visual arts practice, she's found a way to merge her passion and all the research she's done around language in a really fascinating way. So that's someone that, of course, we want to be able to support her and show people like this is you like you should be paying attention to what these artists are doing and what they're trying to call upon and what they're trying to say. So, when it comes to and the way that we can figure that out is because these artists share their work online. For artists who are like listening, I want to understand like what does this look like? Share your artwork, be involved in the conversations. I think and I'll use Sasha again as a really great example. And Lars Wander, who's on our roster, even Juan, like these artists are always sharing their work online. They're always sharing what they're thinking. They're, constantly making sure we know as a community what they're thinking or what they're exploring at this moment. And I think that's so fun. And yeah, so share your work. That's like probably like the number one most important thing, because we can't find you if we can't find you.
Thank you so much. And if we are going back again to the history of generative art, what were like some of the major breakthrough in terms of the history of this medium in general? Yeah, because in my head I'm thinking about AI, maybe machine learning, something like this. But maybe you
Mhm.
have broader and richer perspectives about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say some of earliest um, the earliest breakthroughs were a bit of there's like one example that I'm thinking of that was actually a bit of a mistake. It was Michael Knoll, who worked at Bell Labs, who was working with a plotter and found that one of the outputs looked like abstract art. And that was kind of and he wrote a memo, I think it was in 1967. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the year. And he basically was just like, the computer can make images, like we can make abstract images with this. And I think that's like a really cool moment. And then kind of like fast forward, we're seeing Max Benz, who was a professor, mathematician, philosopher based out of Germany, working with his students to kind of introduce this idea of information aesthetics and having sort of essentially like an algorithmic approach to looking at what makes an interesting artwork and this balance of order and chaos. And so in terms of uh, having this is where generative art kind of comes from, that terminology, generative aesthetics, because I think there's also this argument that like algorithmic art is a better term for it, but it was because of him artists like Manfred Moore started referring to themselves as generative artists. And then I'm forgetting the year, but in Paris there was the first museum solo show with Manfred Moore, where he also showcased works on a plotter, and he had the plotter running in real time. And he had a really big board there that he wrote, what in French, what are your thoughts on like aesthetics done with the aid of the computer? AKA, like, what are your thoughts on computer generated art? And everyone was pissed, like, more is death. How dare you? Like, the people were upset. People, that to them, it was art was the most important part of being human, and how dare you kind of hand that over to the computer. And I think we're seeing that exact same conversation happen right now with AI. So and then we have the advent of the internet, and that, like, in the 90s, that's really the kind of like, the World Wide Web goes online. We have the introduction of JavaScript and CSS and Flash, and people start making net art, and people are sharing on forums how to do these sorts of things. And then yeah, there's a lot. So, shameless plug, get the new Toshin book on NFTs. I read all about the history in my chapter on algorithmic art, and I point out a lot of these key moments in there. So yeah, those are kind of some of the first things that come to mind that pop up, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. And so basically, I know Artix Code has a big mission to support females in this
Mhm,
industry.
mhm.
And if you were to inspire girls or women who are just starting their journey, in creative coding, generative art, what would it be? Because it has two the most overwhelming components, coding itself and basically blockchain, Web3 things going on. So how would you kind of demystify the idea that it is overcomplicated?
Oh, okay. So actually, for the last 10 years, I've been part of a nonprofit called Code Art. And so very similar names. But Code Art was founded by Amy Renshaw. I came in as the director of education the first few years, and now I'm on the board. But really, what we do is we get young girls around South Florida, and we teach them how to make art with code in a really fun, collaborative way with their girlfriends. They have their clubs, and we do a really big competition every single year where we and a big expo. We put all their artwork up. We do awards, and it's really amazing to see what's happened over the last few years and seeing girls graduate from the program and enter a space now, like entering college and studying art, studying computer science, or at least not being afraid of computer science as a whole, because they see how creative and fun it can be. And then, at the same time, I think one of the larger initiatives that we've experimented with that I love teaching intro classes. And so one of the fun workshops that I've done is called Wine and Code. And I basically just get a bunch of women together in a room with some wine, and we drink a little to kind of get rid of the nerves, let them know that this is a safe space. We're just here to have fun, and don't take it too seriously, because code can feel really scary at first. I remember the first time I looked at some lines of code and I was like, what is this? And so I think, for me, it's always just making sure that we can talk about it in a way that feels accessible, because my feeling is, if I can do it, you can do it. I was never someone who wanted to learn about computer science. It was something that kind of just happened. I happened to like trip into it. So when it comes to, if you're just getting started and don't know where to, or you're interested in getting started, I can't recommend the coding train on YouTube enough. So Dan Schiffman is a professor at NYU. He's also part of the Processing Foundation, all around wonderful human being. He posts a bunch of tutorials online. They're really easy to understand. He's a really wonderful educator. So I have to say, if you are interested in learning about creative coding, go to the coding train. It is a great place to start. It's a wonderful resource. I think every single generative artist right now can tip their hats to Dan Schiffman. He's inspired them in one way or another. And so I can't recommend that enough. But if anyone's interested in supporting code art, please check us out online. We're always looking for we do online classes too. We do workshops, always looking for funding, of course. So if anyone's interested, reach out to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think they will. So basically, this would be like the final question of the webinar. I want to ask you, what is coming up? What are some next collections you're working on? If there is anything else you can hint us about, right? Because we are extremely curious.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. The next project, this is actually the first time I'm announcing it, but I feel like we're getting close, so I'm okay with it. So we recently signed Helena Sarin. She is an absolute pioneer in the world of AI artwork, but she also does whatever she wants, and I love that about her. And she is always exploring her practice and trying and trying to do new things. And so she's created an entire collection of ceramics that we're really excited to be showcasing. We'll be showcasing them in New York. She is, yeah, she's wonderful. Oh, these images are taking so long to load. Okay, yeah, so I actually just did a post on our Instagram you could check out too, on the artixcode.io Instagram account. You can see kind of like her aesthetics, but we'll be doing a series, a release with her in the coming weeks, which will be really, really fun. So those are some of her ceramics. So we're gonna have a few of those on display here in New York at Loom Studios, and it'll be fun to just kind of have them with amongst the people, and people could see her, the way she glazes, the way she paints, the way she uses her hands. But all of her works are really inspired by her GAN outputs, which I think is really fun. So she's still using GANs and still using AI, but really as kind of a starting point for her physical craft, which I love. And yeah, then we're talking with another artist who is an emerging artist, not signed by Artix Code, but we just think is so talented and wonderful that we want to showcase them. So that'll be coming relatively soon. And then we have Art Basel coming up also. So we're I'm based in Miami. I'm currently in New York now, but I'm based in Miami. So Art Basel Miami is always a really big moment for us to do something great for the community. So that'll be fun. We're planning some really cool things. The announcement to come soon.
And following up on this, you normally exhibit at Art Basel or at alternative art fair like Scope, like just let us know.
Oh yeah. So Scope is on we're working with Scope this year, and we're really excited.
Amazing. Sofia, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your energy is amazing. Like, you are so cheerful. And thank you so much for sharing all of your tips and insights. Extremely valuable. Have an amazing day. Keep us tuned on everything that you're working on. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Very cool. We'll talk soon.